All right. Well, Michael, thank you for joining and being able to share your expertise with our community. I'm excited for myself to learn. I feel like it's always kind of a little free consulting here for myself, but also for our community to learn what does it look like to do profitable networking. So first, will you kind of tell us who you are and then, yeah, kind of bring us into this topic?
Sure. So my name is Michael Whitehouse. I am the guy who knows a guy based here in Southeast Connecticut. And I got into this. People ask, how'd you get to be such a great networker? And I said, I'm not good at anything else. So I had to be good at connecting people. But that's half a joke, but half true. I first arrived in Groton, Connecticut here. I didn't know anybody, had no job, no business, nothing to sell. And I started going to networking events. And the only asset I had was the other connections I'd made. So I would start meeting people and make introductions to other people. And before I knew it, and I mean like 3-4 months later, I'm meeting CEOs, mayors, chairmen of the board, executive directors, the people who are running the county, running the area. I was getting to connect with no background, fresh off the turnip truck. And it was because I was making these connections. And within a year or two, I realized I was doing something repeatable. There's nothing special about me. Now, my extroverted nature is why I stumbled across it. But once I was doing it, I didn't have to be an extrovert to do it. Anyone could do the same thing I was doing. And so that's how I wrote my first book, which is this one here, The Guy Who Knows a Guy. Here it is. The Guy Who Knows a Guy, which it tells that story and also teaches through that. And then 2020, things went online. I was able to take that out of, Southeast Connecticut is not a big place. So I was able to take it to the world and meet a much larger network and a much higher caliber of networkers doing bigger and better things, and realize these same concepts that I'd perfected in New London County, Connecticut, work just as well on a larger scale. And again, very soon I was meeting, 7-8 figure business owners. I was meeting major players in the coaching space, and by doing the exact same things. And the main key to it, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this more, is seeking to deliver value to everyone I meet. Every time I meet someone, is how can I make them better off? Because that's the core of sales. How can I make you better off in a way that makes you give me money for it? But sometimes you don't give me money. Sometimes I just make you better off. And then maybe later you come back and give me money. So that's the basic principle. Start from how can I make you better off and worry about the rest later.
I love that. I love that generous posture there. Mm-hmm. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to show up consistently and give. And yeah, it seems like it's working out pretty well. So, and even, having gotten to know you a little bit here in recent months, I can totally imagine you showing up at a new place and meeting those people. And you're, like you said, your extroverted nature allowed you to discover this, but I love how you've taken a lot of these principles and distilled it down for those of us who maybe aren't as pumped about walking into a big room.
And I think for those people, a lot of times, because you say, well, I don't want to give a pitch. I don't want to be taking from people. Most people are uncomfortable taking. And when you're taught to have an elevator pitch that talks about your selling points and your company and how great you are, you're like, I'm not, don't love that. So if instead it's your job is to go in and serve 3 or 5 or 10 people, well, okay, I guess I can do that. How? Well, make an introduction, teach them something, share something with them, find some way to make 3 or 5 or 10 people better off. That's your mission.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like fun. That doesn't sound awful and uncomfortable. That sounds good. And I think so people are torn between, well, I want to be good and giving, but I need to be profitable. I need to make money. And what I teach is
means taking.
They're the same.
Which is wrong, but
it's not about altruism or being Mother Teresa or living a vow of poverty. You will make more money if you help more people.
Yeah, I like it.
And first, let me share the 3 basic steps of profitable networking that I recommend for people. And the first is knowing your goal. So what are you trying to do? And this means know your goal, big picture. I want to end world hunger, or I want to, retire, or I want to have $1 million or $100 million exit or whatever. And then also bring that down to smaller pictures. So, okay, I want to have $100 million exit, but before that, I need to have a $10 million product. And before that, I need to have $1 million this. And before that, I need to have 100,000, seed round, and work that down to what that next goal is. And then what does that mean in this networking event? What does this mean in my networking activities? So if I want to, if my next step is $100,000 in funding, well, I need to find someone who can give me $100,000 in funding, which does not mean the orphan Oliver, will you please, sir, may I please have some funding? Please, sir, please buy my product. That's not what it means, but it means being aware that that is what you are looking for. So if you come across it, you can find it. The second step is know who can achieve that goal for you. So if you're looking for $100,000 in funding, you would like to find someone who could write a check for $100,000. Now, maybe you will not find that. Maybe you'll find 10 people who can write $10,000 checks. But if you're looking for people who can write $10,000 checks, you'll find people who can write $1,000 checks. So you look for the people who can just do it, who can be like, I like it, done. That's ideal. And also it's more compelling. So when you're telling someone, I'm looking to end world hunger, and for that, I need to find someone who can write a $10 million check. And there's probably 3 people in the world who can do that. And their names are, this, this, and this. But, that's ideally who I'm looking for. And if not them, then people like them. People's like, wow, oh, that's ambitious. Who do I know who might know Richard Branson? Or who do I know who might know Bill Gates? Versus, I'm looking for people to do $1,000 donations. I don't know. But that's the first step along the way to the third step, which is craft a compelling vision. So you want a $100 million exit. La-di-da, I don't care. That's your exit. It's not my exit. I'm not compelled by that. But I want to create a company which will lead to a $100 million exit because it will change the way people manage their time or manage their budgets or stay healthy or whatever amazing new thing you have. That's a compelling vision. Also, a compelling vision could be, I want to be able to, return the favor. My wife supported me for years as I built my business. I want to return the favor and let her quit her job. And somebody might say, oh, I don't even care what your business is. I love what you're doing. You're taking care of your wife. Yeah, let me see if I can help you. It's somehow create a compelling vision so that your goal, which is exciting to you, is now exciting to them. And when I teach this, there's 5 steps. The 4th step is have all your tools, which means know your introduction and have booking links and that kind of stuff. And then the 5th step is always moving forward. So everything you're doing, you don't say, all right, yeah, so I'll call you later to see what we can do. It's at the end of the call, you book the next call or do the next thing or whatever it is. So those are more tactical things, but I'm going to focus on those 3 as we go through the different stages, because that basic concept of know your goal, know who can achieve your goal, and craft a compelling vision that is compelling to the network and the people who can achieve it and all that, that basic structure will take you a long way.
Okay, let's shift though now to the adoption stage. So we exit discovery when we have that ready to sell validated offer. Now adoption is we're trying to get market adoption, and it's kind of a transitional stage because the next one that we'll talk about afterwards is called sustainability. And so that's where we're really optimizing a sustainable business. In this, we're just trying to get to like that ideal month. And so when you look at like, okay, what do I want to make over the course of a year? Divide that by 12. That's my ideal month. And that's where we help people kind of figure out what's that economic milestone you're aiming for. And now that we have a sellable offer, how do we sell it with enough regularity and density to have our ideal month? And then sustainability is all about making that ideal month the normal month. But right here, we're really trying to climb up to that ideal month and have that happen for the first time. So in this case, again, they have something clearly. I'm trying to sell this, and I'm trying to sell it up to this frequency. So how does profitable networking maybe shift in this stage? What should someone be thinking about when they're in the adoption stage?
So in the adoption stage, this is where it's going to sound more like the networking advice you've heard before, because now you've got something. You're going in and trying to make a sale. You're not trying to get advice and support. You got that. Now you've got a thing. You want to sell the thing to the people. So your goal is to find people who want to buy the thing. That's, you want to sell some number of the thing, some amount of dollars, some amount of units, some amount of clients, whatever. That's your goal, is to sell enough of it. So who can achieve this for you is the person who could refer you or put you in front of that many people. So if you want to get 100 clients, then your answer number 2 is the person who can put you in front of enough of your clients so 100 of them will buy. That's ideally it. So this may be a person with a 1 million person email list. It could be the person with a very large TV show, someone with a large network. And again, if you don't reach the person with a 1 million person email list, you may find someone with a 10,000 person email list. But you're starting from what is the goal is sell your stuff. And who the ideal person is, this is going to evolve. This is in this phase. It's about figuring that out. Is who exactly is that, and also figuring out what is the compelling vision. So you're going to try different goal persons, different people you want to meet, and different ways to impress them. What is it that someone's going to be excited about? And this is where the 2-line intro that I teach comes in.
Yeah. Okay. Talk through that.
Yep. Which is, how what I do is. So how there's a problem, what I do is solve that problem. So how a lot of people are doing the wrong thing in their business because they don't know what stage they're at. What we do is teach them a series of stages so they can know where they are to be using the right strategy at the right time. So a couple things about that. It's going to be 2 sentences. They're going to be short. So rule of thumb is if you find yourself taking a breath, then you're probably done. You may take a breath between the 2 sentences, but if it's, how a lot of people have trouble with networking, what I do is teach them to network using a 5-step process as well as a 2-line introduction. And I run a series of networking events and summits and wherever that breath was is probably when you were actually done and thought you need to keep saying things. Funny thing is, neurologically, the more you say, the less people retain. And it's one of those weird things, but if it's short, people remember just those words because their brain's like, wait, where's the rest of it? And it's like kind of rewinds, goes back over it. Did I miss something? Is there something? Is the answer actually in there? It's so short. It's also going to lead them to ask questions because they want to know more. Whereas if you keep talking, they stop listening and they say, oh yeah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They discard it because they can't make heads or tails of it. So you keep it short, 2 lines, and 3rd person. So how many people get tired in the afternoon. What I do is help them maintain their energy level all day long. Not, how you get that tired feeling in the afternoon. What I do is help you feel energetic all day long. Because when somebody says you, who are you thinking about? Yourself. You're no longer thinking about the person speaking. You're no longer thinking about your network. You're no longer thinking about anything they want you thinking about. So if I say you, you're thinking about, well, do I really get that tired? Oh, I get tired. Yeah, because I saw this thing and they talked about blood sugar and I really need to stop eating chocolate, but I like chocolate so much. And what were you saying? Oh, you're done. Okay, whatever. But if you say many people, then you're like, you know what? Yeah, I do know. And I'm one of them, actually. And now you're listening because you didn't push you into your head. So by using that intro, now you got people curious. They want to know more. Now they're going to ask questions. Oh, how do you do that? How long have you been doing that? Where did you learn? How much do you charge? How do I work with you? Those are the questions you want people asking. And that's going to grab their attention. And then again, we're still always going to be trying to provide value when we meet people. So you're in a networking space. Hey, what do you do? You know how people get tired in the afternoon. What I do is help them maintain a steady energy level. And, but what do you do? And then they say something about who are you here trying to meet? What are your goals? How can I help you? And maybe you refer them to a YouTube channel or you refer them to an awesome online community you might know. Or you refer them to, some other resource. And once you've given enough, their capacity to not reciprocate is exceeded. And they say, okay, well, this has been great. Thank you so much for all this. How can I help you? Because they're thinking, you've done so much for me. I've done nothing for you. Wow, I'm a jerk. How can I help you? And that's the point when you say, well, what I'm really trying to do is I've taken this program I mentioned, and it is now a course that I'm offering. So I'm looking for people who have an audience that would be interested in that course. And if you know anyone who might like to talk about that, I'd love to talk to them. So this is the goal. This is the compelling vision. If you do the value thing well enough, the compelling vision is I'm going to give you a way to reciprocate everything I just did for you. but also it's presenting it in such a way that makes people want to help and making it easy for them to help.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you're saying, yeah, I've got this course and I don't know what to do with it, well, then you're kind of still in that I believe it's the discovery phase where
Yeah.
figuring out like, what am I doing? Now you're still looking for advice, not networking support. But once you have it, it's like, it's good, it's proven, it's
Mm-hmm.
rocking and rolling. Now I'm looking for people I can help with it, and ideally people who have audiences that I can help with it, that I can get in front of one way or another. But it's being clear on what you're looking for, and then providing value, and then letting them ask how they can help.
Mm-hmm.
And the cool thing is, not everyone's going to reciprocate. Maybe you run out of time. Maybe they just don't notice. Maybe they're particularly boorish. Whatever. But whether they reciprocate or not, they're going to remember that you helped them.
Mm-hmm.
And a very interesting thing happens here. And obviously this happens at every level. You serve them first. Doesn't matter where you are. You can serve them. And interesting things happen. So I'll give you the opposite example first, and then I'll show you the positive example. The opposite example is, if you're a shisty salesman and you are there to take people's money and talk fast and get them to buy snake oil from you, if you're walking through the grocery store, you got to look around the corner before you take that turn, because you don't know who's over there and you don't know how you might have screwed them before. If you ever find yourself hiding behind a stack of cans of peas because you see that client that you screwed over there, then you're probably doing something wrong. Or worse yet, you're walking down the hall and someone's like, you, and you're like, oh crap, what did I do? Which one did you buy? That's the opposite. If you do this right, though, you'll be walking through the supermarket or going to an event or on a networking call, wherever the people you support are, and you'll have someone be like, hey, David, oh, so great to see you. And you're thinking, did we meet before? And this actually happened to me. Someone's like, Michael, oh, it's so great to see you. And I just got to thank you. And I'm like, good. Yes, absolutely. They're like, yeah, I've still got the job you helped me get, and it's working out really well. I got a promotion, and it was so awesome. Thank you so much. I didn't remember who this person was, where I met them, where I introduced them to whatever job it was, but they remembered me because, the day that they met me at a networking event was a pivotal, life-changing moment. And for me, it was Thursday. But because I'm always seeking to provide that value, I'm creating this trail of people behind me that I've done stuff for. And as I said, being altruistic is not altruistic. Doing things for people is not just, so that I can be a good person and put good things onto my soul. You put stuff out, it comes back. Sometimes immediately, sometimes 3 years later, sometimes because they're in a room that you don't know is happening and they mention your name, and that person then says, yeah, oh, I heard about this person. Yeah, I heard about him. And they mention to someone else, and then you run across that person, and that person's willing to work with you because they've heard good things. They don't know who they've heard it from. They don't know when. It's just out there. And there's no point in keeping score, because when you keep score, you limit how much good you do. So you always put it out there, and sometimes it's going to come back immediately, sometimes later. But that's kind of that first focus. But then always having that goal in mind. So when someone says, how can I help you? You're ready to say, this is how you can help me. This is specifically what I need right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I like how, even as you're going through it, you said, how do you say, like, I'm looking for people who have an audience that need, not just I'm looking for people that need.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of people miss, that they're trying to go from like, oh, I have a sellable offer to my ideal month. And they're just doing it one little client at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Which if you're a really big offer and you only need 3 clients, okay, maybe that works, but still that probably doesn't. So I like that you're encouraging, because I think too, again, like we're saying, when you're starting off, your confidence might not be, hey, I should go be on somebody's podcast, or I should reach out to someone with a big list, or that again might feel like, oh, I'm not ready for that. But what you're encouraging is like, hey, still start asking, looking for those people who serve the same people you do, but do something different than you do. And I imagine some of what you're talking about with that compelling vision, you're trying to align the value and the way you want to make that end client's life better with the way that the person that you're talking to, that referral partner, wants to make their life better. Like I'm thinking about last week, I was actually at a networking event and I was talking to someone who runs like a, what is it? It's like a payroll and accounting and bookkeeping and all those things. And it was interesting because he said, he's like, oh, well, I need to start like using a service like yours for all my clients to basically, if they don't have a business coach, to go, hey, you should go use these guys. And if they're like, no, I don't want to do that, he's like, I just won't take them because I don't want clients who won't grow and receive input. Because he's like, they're really hard to work with and they usually go out of business pretty fast. And so I thought that was interesting where it's like, oh yeah, both of us kind of, and made me think of it because like our compelling vision is business owners who are thriving, you know, in that sense. Like I want to see people thrive by giving them clarity and direction. He wants to see them thrive by having all their systems and processes and books and everything in order. But we have that same common vision. So is that a piece of that, is kind of figuring out what is the shared compelling?
That's part of it. And I also want to mention, because you're talking about not, maybe not going on this podcast and talking to people big list if you're not ready. And I would say you are ready if you have the ability to deliver the solution. You may not have a product, you may not have it proven, you may not be able to convert, but if you end up with a client, if someone somehow takes a wrong turn and trips over you and says, oh, you do this, money? Can you serve them? Don't worry about if you can sell them. Can you serve? Do you have that knowledge?
Yeah.
And if you have that knowledge, it's time to start getting on podcasts, because you will actually be a better podcast guest before you've dialed in what you're selling. I'm going to say that a second time in case someone sneezed. You're going to be a better podcast guest before you've dialed in what you're selling.
Okay. Why is that?
Because the only thing you know to talk about is the solution you offer, not the thing you can sell. So once you've dialed in what you're selling and you've dialed in your marketing strategy, now you've dialed in a particular way you talk about it and your talking points, and you're really zeroed in. And that's great. It's a great strategy. But there's people I know, you listen to them on 4 podcasts. You could, if you were to remove the track that has the interviewer and replace it with a different interviewer, you wouldn't know the difference, because they say the same thing on every single interview because they've got their signature talk and their signature, and it's fine, but it lacks that authenticity of when you're just like, I just know some stuff and I just want to help people. So if you get out and do that, you're actually going to be a better now you're not going to get sales from it because you don't have any way to generate leads. You don't have any way to convert that audience, but podcasts aren't that expensive to be on, and you're still providing great value. And every podcast you're on is one more time than when people type your name into Google. There you are. If people are Googling your name and all they find is 19 podcast interviews and no website, they're like, who is this guy? He's been interviewed 19 times and doesn't even have a website. Wow, that's weird, but clearly he must be some kind of expert. And the other thing I'll say to the people with the big lists is, they're not going to promote you if you don't have something dialed in and know your earnings per click and earnings per lead and all that. But you can still start developing the relationship with them. So you can have the conversation with them, especially if you can connect with the actual person and not just their, JV manager of the week, because a lot of these companies, they have high turnover. So you build relationships with someone who won't be there next week. But if you can actually work with the person and get their attention, and you're approaching them from a perspective of, how can I support you? This is not what they're used to. They're not used to someone with a 500 person email list coming to them with their 50,000 person email list and saying, how can I support you? And they're thinking, wait, how can you support what? You got a 500 person email list. I thought you were going to be begging hat in hand. Like, no, I know you're not going to promote me. You're really big and I'm really small. How can I support you? And it's like the story from the Bible about the woman who gives, she has one coin and she gives the one coin to the temple, and how that is so much greater a gift than the rich man who gives a bag of gold out of his bags of gold. the same thing. They're going to notice that you're offering everything you have to support them, even if it's only your 500-person email list.
Right.
They're going to notice that. And here's the crazy thing. Your 500-person email list will often outperform other people's 10,000-person email lists, because your list is probably people you met at networking events, people that you've had on webinars with you. They're people who've actually known you. Whereas to get a 10,000, 20, 50,000 person email list, that's giveaways, Facebook ads, large scale summits. That's people who signed up for some freebie or some ebook and doesn't even know the person sending the emails out. So when you say you should check out David's program, then people are going to listen because they know you. Whereas when the guy with the big list says, check out David's program, they're like, I don't know, David, I don't know you. I just signed up for an ebook or something. I don't even know how I got on this list. What is this? So you may be able to get 10, 50, 100 people to opt in or to attend the event or whatever. And they're going to remember you've got a tiny list. They're going to be like, you got 93 opt-ins here. How big's your list? You got 13% of your whole list to sign up. All right, let's talk again. Let's see what I can do for you. You know, maybe I can put you in the bottom of a newsletter, or maybe I can, you know, do something. So yeah, it's actually, because that's the thing to remember is even, and this is something that took me a while to learn, even the biggest, you know, people in the 1 million person email lists, unless they are a couple of big names, you know, Brendan Bouchard and Grant Cardone and, you know, those people, unless they're those really big names, there's still just some guy, some gal working out of their dining room. Maybe they have an office. You know, they probably have an office at that level. But, you know, it's someone working out of an office in their basement and, you know, with some VAs, maybe 1 or 2 employees. These aren't the CEO of Ford. You know, this isn't Richard Branson or Bill Gates. And so they don't necessarily see themselves inaccessible. So you might meet them at an event, have a call with them, and also they may have been exactly where you are 5, 7 years ago. But they're not thinking like, it is one of the people wishes to speak with me. All right, well, make sure he bathes first. Like, that's not how they think. They're thinking, oh, it's someone else in the industry who's not quite here. If you act that way, if you're ready to listen that way.
No, that's a really good. I hope that helps free up some of the anxiety that people might feel coming into networking groups. One other question before we jump into sustainability. I'm curious how you encourage people to kind of determine the volume of networking they need to be doing, particularly in this adoption stage where you are trying to like really ramp up. Is there a too much? Is there, you know, because I'm just curious. Yeah. Is there some guidance you would give someone at this stage regarding just the volume of maybe even events that they go to?
That's more of a strategic question. So, you know, how much lead generation is too much? And there actually is an amount that's too much. If you're not closing the leads, it's too much lead generation. Yeah. But, you know, for me, networking is most of my lead generation. Until I started running summits, it was almost all my lead generation. So how much networking is too much networking? How many hours in a week? But so then it's not a question of how many events, it's which events. So, you know, how many crappy events should you go to? None. How many good events should you go to? As many as you can find. But depends on your strategy. Some people, their strategy is more automated. So their strategy is built around Facebook ads or organic or paid, you know, social media or SEO or something like that. In which case, the focus is on a more technical sort of lead generation. Whereas if you're doing networking based lead generation, if you're getting onto calls with people, then networking is often the most cost effective way to do it because it scales with you. You meet better and better people who own their audiences, and you start to own your audience instead of renting your audience, which is all paid media is. So it's not a question of how much networking. It's a question of assessing, and you know, I imagine this would apply to any activity you're doing. Assessing what's working, what's not. When you go to an event, are you meeting the right people? Now, I've gone to events where I say I'm never going to go to this event again, but I'm glad I'm here because I'm already here. So once I'm there, I'm going to make the most of it, meet as many people as I can, and then make a note not to go back because it's not great. But I've met some really great people at really wrong events. Doesn't mean I'm going back to that event hoping I get lucky a second time. I'm going to try to find the events where, you fish where the fish are. If you're trying to fish and you cast your line that way onto land, well, it might end up in a cooler and catch a fish. But your best strategy is not to fling your line onto the land. Your best strategy is to fling your line into the water where the fish are. But it's like anything else. It's a matter of what is the ROI on what you're doing. If going to events, but prior to the pandemic, I published a community magazine, and 80% of my sales came from networking. So how much networking should I be doing? How many events are there? Because almost all my business came from that. And it would take, I think it was something like 10-to-1 ratio between the number of cold call appointments it would take to get a sale versus the number of networking based appointments to get a sale. So if I could take time away from cold calling to do more networking, that would make sense, because that was turning a less productive activity into a more productive activity. But it's a matter of going, making sure you are efficient in it and making sure you're aware of what you're looking for, which is why I always start with know your goal. Because if you don't know your goal, you can't measure it.
No, that's really good. And I think, that what you're saying, like you kind of called out, is true. Like any tactic, any strategy, you want to evaluate. You don't want to just do it and be like, I need ads. Well, if your ads aren't getting you anything, stop wasting money. And same thing for any other strategy. And so, but I do think a lot of times people aren't keeping enough notes to really look back and go, okay, which events really led to sales? Which ones led to a lot of appointments? But then, maybe through those appointments, were they with people who had good lifetime value, who actually closed into paying customers, or were they just people who were interested? Or this one was all potential referral partners, and so I need to wait and see how that one plays out. And,
I don't think so. Yeah. You don't necessarily track. Some people I know do track per event where they came from and whatnot. I would track networking as a category.
As a category, okay, that's interesting.
And then because it's also look at the sales you make and track them backwards.
Right.
What you'll usually discover is you'll say, yeah, event C, I didn't like that. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel very productive. And then you look at your last 10 clients and 3 of them came from event C. You're like, okay, weird. I don't know how it works, but apparently it was there.
Yeah.
If you look at networking, you say, well, out of my last 10 clients, 2 came from networking, but I went to 3 networking events a week for a month. Well, yeah, that might be too much because the ratio is not there.
Right.
But if networking is getting results, then keep networking. It's really impossible to say exactly what it is, but you can tell when you're at an event if you're making connections. Some events are just structured so they don't make good connections. Everyone goes around, does a 2-minute intro. That's not a good way to make connections. Very mentally intensive because you have to take notes on who it's going to be, and you can't do it. But you look at an event, and you say, how many people did I meet there? That's kind of the first KPI. Is I was there for an hour, I met 2 people, versus I was there for an hour, I met 7 people. So how many follow-up meetings came from the event? And if you want to track it with a spreadsheet and whatnot, that's great. If you're that kind of person, hyper extroverts are bad at tracking things. But this is also a side note why I say introverts are better networkers, because introverts, I'll just meet with more people. Yay! Introverts are like, what can I do to not meet more people? So they're the ones who want to optimize and track and keep the details and the notes and everything, and tend to be better at it. So they go to less events and they get more results per event because there's a mental, energetic cost of every event. For me, there's no cost. For me, the events are fun. I go to local events. I don't know who I'm going to meet. I'm just there for the wine and the cheese and hanging out and socializing. But for an introvert, they're like, oh, I have to go to another event. Okay. If I've got to do it, how do I get the most out of it? And what worked last time? And I got a spreadsheet and a diagram, and I got my notes, and I'm keeping track of everyone, remembering all the birthdays. Because if I can meet 100 people instead of 1,000 people and get the same results, I'm doing that. The extrovert says, if I can meet 1,000 people instead of 100 people, woohoo, party time.
Yeah.
So both strategies work. It's a matter of aligning to what works for you and what where you enjoy spending your energy.
No, that's really good. I appreciate you kind of walking that out, because I think that's a question I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs like, "Ah, should I do more? Am I not doing enough?" And I think that kind of helps give some guidance there. So as we've gone through all these different ones, Michael, is there kind of anything you'd want to, as we wrap up, kind of recap as we think about not just networking, but really profitable networking? Like how does networking help you grow your business and help you grow your impact and your influence? Yeah, anything you want to kind of recap with here?
So the first step is always to be seeking to provide value in every step in the process, beginning to end, because by doing that, it will get you into more productive conversations. It'll get you to talk to better people. It'll get people saying nice things about you in rooms that you're not in. And it eliminates that stress of, what should I say? You should say the thing that helps the person you're talking to. So if you're always thinking in that perspective, also then people aren't going around their guard up because they know that you're always trying to get an angle. You know, they know you're trying to help them. And you get that reputation as being a good person who's trying to do good for people. And then they're going to want to do good back. And then that basic root, know what your goal is. And this is not just for networking, by the way. This is for everything. When I do coaching, doesn't matter what someone says, hey, how do I blank? My first question is always, why do you want to do it? In other words, what's your goal? So I want to do more networking. Why? What's the reason for it? What's the goal? What do you want to get out of it? And then who can help you achieve it? And then compelling vision. In other words, what's the thing that they will find interesting, not the thing that you will find interesting. So take what you're doing, make it interesting for them, which is kind of comes back to that value thing. Value is thinking about what makes this interaction good for them. Compelling vision, what makes this interesting for them. So trying to place yourself out of your shoes and into their shoes is going to make it much more effective. And that's how you avoid being the pitchy guy who's just coming in and saying, check out my amazing product. Hey, you're looking to sell a house? Because I'm a realtor and I can sell your house for you. But like, no, I'm really not. No, thank you. So, but it's always about providing that value to everyone you can, as readily as you can. And at every level, knowing what you're looking for and knowing there is someone in the world, in almost any situation, there is someone walking the earth who can give you what you need. You just have to find them and make them like you enough to give it to you.
No, I like it. No, that's really good. And yeah, so I appreciate you walking through this. It's your enthusiasm and your experience really do shine through, as well as your extroversion. But I appreciate how you've called out, and I've heard you talk about this before, how you don't have to be an extrovert to be a really effective networker. And so if you're watching this and you're like, networking terrifies me. That's not my jam, going to talk to new people. Would definitely encourage you to connect with Michael. He does a great job of helping people think through like what that looks like. I'm kind of like an ambivert personally, so I can there's times where I'm like, yeah, and then there's like, how do I talk to as few people as possible? So yes, I would definitely encourage anyone to connect with you, and that's where it's great because you're here in the community with us, and look forward to you running some workshops and some other different opportunities for people to really leverage their networking skills, because it is such a important part of growing our business. So thanks so much.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you.